Good Monday morning. Today is Monday, October the 11th. It is 9:06 in the morning, and we are back for the second week of Back to Basics. So if you missed last week, you missed an incredible session. Tim Gibson shared with us how to set goals, why goals are important, and most importantly, how to follow through and achieve those goals. So if you missed that, make sure that you go back and watch last week's video. It's entitled Back to Basics, episode 1, with Tim Gibson. So go back and look at that. Today, I am as equally as excited. So we have Stephanie Furnas sharing this morning. Now, Stephanie and I, we go way back. We go back to high school. And so we've known each other or been in each other's lives since 2003, 2004. And Stephanie, we happen to have our oldest children at the same daycare, pre-K. And, Stephanie, I was at an event and Stephanie looked at me and said, how are you here during the day at pre-K with your daughter? And I just told her about real estate, and, that started this journey. And Stephanie is on an incredible journey this year. She has almost tripled her just earnings from last year, her closings, her volume. She's mentoring. So make sure that you pay attention to what she shares today. She's going to talk to us about your why. Now, we know the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why. There's a reason that why is at the end. And why is the most important driving factor of whatever you're doing business related. And it doesn't necessarily have to be business. It could be a health goal. It could be a financial goal. It could be a marriage goal. But if you do not know what your why is, or how to find your why, or how to stay focused on your why, stay tuned, because Stephanie is going to share how to find your why and make it and implement that into your life. So Stephanie, thank you for being here this morning, and take it away.
Thanks, Cody. Okay, so I think first thing would be probably good to just kind of tell you where I'm coming from. Cody touched on it a bit. Our oldest kids went to pre-K together. I asked him what he does. At that point, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had been laid off and then got pregnant with our youngest child and was very ill and couldn't work. So we made the decision to try and make it on one income. And very shortly before I saw Cody there, my husband looked at me one night, stressed out. He has a hard job he's not always happy at. And he looked at me and said, "Hey, we're not doing okay. Like, we're short every month. We're making it, but we go in the red each month. And the next month we catch up, but then we're starting out even worse than we did the month before. We're not doing okay. Like, you're going to have to start working. We've got to have more income." So I see Cody. I stay up all night racking my brain. What am I going to do that's still going to allow me to be present for my kids, to be present for sports, and to be able to carry the household like I want to? And then I saw Cody at daycare and asked him what he did. He told me he used to be a teacher. Now he's in real estate. He's the sole income at their house. And Cody, maybe a couple days later, called Cody and said, "Hey, let's meet. Let's have some coffee and talk." So we did. We talked, and one of the first things Cody asked me is, "What is your why?" And at that time, my why was, "Hey, I'm broke. Like, I need to make some money. I need to help pay the bills. I need to take some stress off my husband." So that was my initial why. A year into that, I had made some money. It made things more comfortable. Of course, a lot of you know your first year in real estate, you're not making a whole lot of money. But me and Cody met to sit down and talk about our goals for the year, right? Those meetings, guys, they're so beneficial. If you have not done that kind of meeting with Cody, reach out, get it set up, because it helps tremendously. You don't think it will, like, what's it going to do writing it on paper? But it really helps open your eyes to where you need to be going. So we sat down and talked. I had made a little bit of money, and then my why was different. My why, which I didn't even realize at the time, but with talking to Cody, my why changed from, "Hey, I need to make money now to help carry the load," to, "I want to retire my husband, who is not always happy at his job. It takes him away from our house a tremendous amount of time. My kids don't see him, right? He's not retired yet, but his shift right now is noon to 10 p.m., which means my oldest, when he gets up and goes to school at 7:20 in the morning, doesn't get to see dad because he's asleep. And then when he gets home from school, dad doesn't get home till after bedtime. So you can see where it really takes him away from our kids a lot. So my why had to be broken down into smaller pieces. I can't just retire my husband overnight. That's not an option. So for us, it turned into, okay, well, this is the end goal, retire my husband, but there's got to be some smaller goals between here and there. And those smaller goals were become debt free, and in the meantime, before he can retire, create space where we can be together as a family. Cody just said, we just went to Disney. I've wanted to go to Disney for years and years, but it's always been financially out of reach because we can't meet our goals if we're spending that kind of money on a trip. So we had camping trips. We went to Panama for Panama City Beach for spring break. So we've chosen some cheaper options until it got to the point where I met one of my smaller goals, which was become debt free. We are debt free except for our mortgage and one student loan now. All other debts are gone. Cars are paid off, credit cards are paid off, home equity line of credit paid off. So that's what I mean when I say there are smaller goals between now and my end why, which is to retire my husband. And that just comes from keeping your focus. Know what your end goal is and how you need to get there, and just keep knocking those things off the list. For me, I have them written down what I want to do. I want to have a certain amount of money in my savings account always. That money is gone to me. It doesn't exist. It stays in there, and it is for nothing other than a safety net in case we have a period where we're not as fine as we are now. My other goal was to, in my business account, have enough money to pay my taxes this year. So it doesn't have to pull from our goal money. That's there. It's set aside. We won't touch it for anything. It doesn't exist. That money is not there. And those things just help me get where we want to go. I follow Tom Ferry online, and he's motivational and has good business advice. And one of the things that I read recently was stop rewarding yourself for being good at your job. Stop rewarding yourself for being disciplined. You don't owe yourself a present because you had a closing. If you're trying to reach a goal, then you put that money on your goal, and that is your reward. Is you are reaching your why. You are reaching where you want to be and making your life better, because in the end, your why is going to keep changing. Soon as I retire Caleb, our why changes. Our why then goes from retiring Caleb to creating passive income. Like, we already know what our next step is. And that really helps. In this business, you hear no a lot. And knowing where you want to go makes those no's easier to accept, because you know, as long as you keep picking up that phone and you keep pushing and you keep hustling, you're slowly over time, maybe not slowly this year, I stuck to what I had been doing, what had been working for me. And here we are, so close to our why. We have enough saved up that if my husband literally just hits a wall and cannot handle one more day of going to work, he could stay home and we would figure it out and we'd be okay. So just writing it down and seeing it in front of you and figuring out, okay, this seems like a big why. How do we get there? And just take it one step at a time. And before you know it, you're going to be there. And our industry is not an easy job. So many people think, oh, realtors have it easy. They just list a house and then they get a check. It's so simple. All of us know that's not true. But if you know why you're hustling so hard, it makes it a lot easier to get up and do it every day. I have to check my notes. I wrote some things down and want to make sure that I said them all. Write them down. Be proud of yourself. Every time you get one step closer, even if it's a nominal thing like setting money aside for taxes, that's not always easy. When you are scraping by and you got bills to pay, it's hard to set that money aside as money you can't touch. But in the end, it's going to get you one step closer to your main why, your main goal. So be proud of yourself. Don't reward yourself. I mean, it's fine. If you want to celebrate and go out to a dinner or something like that, that's fine. But every time you get paid, Don't get stuck in that mentality of, I owe myself something because I did my job well. Well, that's feels good, but it's not serving you well. You're not getting where you want to go. So keep your mind right, keep it focused on where you want to get to and what you have to do to get to it. Because as soon as you start letting your mind stray from this is how I get to the end goal, it's going to take longer and you're going to have to get yourself set back up again. So just stay focused. I'm guilty also of feeling like I owe myself something, but we all do it, especially with little kids. It's hard not to be like, "Hey, we got paid. Let's go do something awesome." It's hard, but just try to stay on the right track. I think that's really I kind of wrapped my story in with how to do it. But really when I met with Cody, it was, "Hey, what's the most important thing to you? What is the biggest pain point in your life right now? What do you feel the most overwhelmed by?" And that helps you narrow down what your why is. Your why might not be the same as me, and that's okay. If your why is to pay cash for your next vehicle or buy a house if you're renting or something like that, guys, it's just really focus in on you and find the thing that is your biggest pain point right now, and that's your why. And you can get to it. I got to it. People ask me all the time, "What did you do different this year that made you successful over last year?" Honestly, nothing. I did nothing different. I just kept doing it. Just keep on going. Keep reaching out. If you think, "Well, I've already told this group of people I'm a realtor," remind them. Tell them again. My neighborhood has a neighborhood HOA Facebook group. Cindy knows. She's on there too. And I post periodically. I just put a little shout out on there. "Hey guys, if you don't remember, I do this. I give our neighborhood a lower rate just because who doesn't want to work at home?" Like, I literally don't have to go anywhere. I walk across the street. I've sold my neighbor to the left's house. I've sold my neighbor's house across the street. It doesn't get better than that. You don't have to go anywhere. So just remind people what you do and just keep on doing it. Keep doing all the things and the success will come. There, Tim has said it before on here. There is more than enough work out there for every single one of us to have a full plate. You just have to keep doing it. That's pretty much all I've got, Cody.
Excellent. Well, I have a question for you. So, say for example, you've got someone that's brand new to real estate or at a sales industry. How do you discover your why? Because like you had mentioned, yes, we want to retire your husband. How do you find that? How do you find something that feels like an elephant? And like you did so well, you broke it down. How do we get here? This is what we have to do. But how do you establish a why?
I think for a lot of people that start out in this industry, their why is probably to pay their bills, but that happens. It happens soon. As long as you're putting the work in, you're paying your bills. It's going to happen for you. So once that is happening and you're comfortable and you're okay, for me, it was just what makes my family the happiest. And that is time with my husband because we don't get it very often. His days off aren't together, they're always spread apart and he needs to recoup from work. So we don't always get quality time there. So for us, it was just looking at what makes us the happiest that we're not getting all the time. And the answer was him. And then it came down to, okay, well, we can't really change his work schedule. And he doesn't really necessarily love his job. It's not his passion. It's a job he's done forever and he's very good at it, but he's not passionate about it. So it then became, well, what is he passionate about? And it's us. Like he is the most himself when he gets quality time with us over more than one day. So then it just turned into, okay, well, if he could just not work, that would be great because even though I'm working, my work doesn't necessarily take me away from my family. I just got a house under contract while standing in line at Disney. We have such a great support system within this brokerage that I leaned on Cindy, I leaned on Kim, and we got it done. And it's just use what you have around you, lean on the people around you. And if you still look at your life and can't quite pinpoint, well, what is my why? Talk to Cody. Sit down and talk to him. He knows. He's been there. He's gone through getting his bearings in real estate while having young children and getting his family together and buying houses and just life. So he's a great person to lean on and talk to. And a lot of times, if you're too sucked into your own bubble, sometimes it's hard to really see what you need and what would take pressure off of you. And sometimes it's easier to talk to somebody who can see it from the outside.
That's excellent. Because I know, a lot of people initially coming into real estate, they think, get into real estate. It's easy, they say. You're going to make a lot of money, they say, right? But they don't understand the challenges and the many hats that we have to wear throughout our throughout a real estate transaction in our day to day. So I'm glad that you touched on that. And then the other thing, Stephanie, one of the reasons that the why is so important is just because what I just said, the obstacles and the hurdles. If your why is not motivating, is not impacting you to keep pushing when you want to stay in bed, when you want to stay in your pajamas, when you want to watch Netflix and just cuddle with the kids, if your why is not enough to keep you pushing, then you will not succeed. And that's one of the things that why we want to bring this back to basics, because like Stephanie just finished testifying, she's about to retire her husband. We set that goal at the beginning of January, and she's in a position now that if something happened, she could do it and their family would function. Stephanie, have you had an easy year in real estate?
No, no, it's been a little rough, but it's one of those, when it rains, it pours, right? So even though I felt like I was drowning in work because the bulk of my work all happened in the same 2 or 3 months. And for me, my bulk of work is different than somebody else's bulk of work. Another agent could probably take on way more clients than I can because I am very careful to protect my time and make sure that I'm still there to do homework. I'm still there to do parent pickup because I hate the school bus. I'm still there for sports. So I limit my time, and that makes me feel overwhelmed when I get 5 or 6 people at one time. It feels like a ton, where another agent could probably handle 12 people at a time if they aren't juggling all the same things. So no, it definitely was not an easy year, but I had my goals set. So I was able to keep my eye on the prize and know that, okay, if I can put my head down and hustle through this, it's going to get me a huge leap forward on where we're trying to go.
Exactly. And that is the key. That is the everyday struggle with us. I was listening to a podcast this morning about mental fortitude and how we, just like you said, reward ourselves. Now, I'll be honest. I remember when the first time I had 3 closings in 1 month, I went out and bought a Bulova watch. I wanted to celebrate. I still have it. I wear it every single time I go back to that moment in my life. It's a landmark. But we've had to focus on the why. The why for me, it was very similar to Stephanie. I'm one income, right? But if you've been around me long enough, you know that we were living on government assistance. My why is right across from my bed. So if I ever want to not get up out of bed, if I ever want to be lazy, if I ever want to do anything that does not equal me getting out of bed, pouring into one of you guys, pouring into someone in the community, loving on my family, serving my clients well, then I will go back into the routine that I was in before. And I don't ever want to go there. So that's the purpose of finding your why. And if you don't know that, if you don't know what your why is, schedule a meeting with me. I'll sit down. We'll dig down. We'll find what you need that is going to push you, that is going to encourage you, and make it something big that will continue, that you can look at and say, this is where I'm going. I don't care that I just lost a contract. I don't care that another agent just took some of my buyers. I don't care that a listing withdrew. That's not going to stop me from retiring Caleb. It's not going to stop me from going back to WIC. It's not going to stop me from impacting the lives that I have to impact while I'm here on this earth. And so, and one thing I want to mention, Stephanie, before we hop off, because you said it, and I learned this, talk about the 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 fear, or not, maybe not the fear, but like if I don't get it. So go back and visit that. What happens if you don't retire Caleb?
Oh, well, then, I mean, that is the end goal. So if it didn't happen, sure, that would stink. But our backup, which I'm an overthinker. I'm a list maker and I'm an overthinker. And if you give me a problem, I'm going to solve it. So for us, we have kind of more than one situation. Right now, with my husband working full time, he's very tech savvy. He's just finished building a computer with my 9-year old. Like, that's his world. That's what he's passionate about. So I did some digging and reached out to some of my contacts and found a contact who just got into doing cybersecurity IT work. And he talked me through how he got there. And he's self taught completely and paid to take the tests. And he makes well over what I made this year, which is fantastic. So that is kind of our backup. Right now, I am using my time more to serve my husband rather than money to retire him, which, I mean, both are happening, but right now it's okay. Well, if you have some days off, let's set aside this number of hours each day to make sure nobody's bothering you so you can get online and start doing these classes that will eventually lead to, well, maybe if you don't get retired, you could at least change directions. And even if it's not as financially stable as your current job, I'll be supporting us enough that it won't matter. And you can do something that you are passionate about. So having more than one goal is a great situation too. I mean, it's still the same why, to get him with us more. And that would be a work from home situation, and get him happy in his position doing something he is passionate about so he can be his true self. I mean, all of us, I'm sure everybody here has probably had a job that took too much time, took too much of us to where we couldn't be everything we want to be when we're at home. I've had one. I'm sure everybody has. I used to drive 2 hours to work in Midtown Atlanta every day and then 2 hours home. And I was an awful person when I got home. And you just, it sucks you out. So just getting him in a position where he can be his true self is our kind of secondary goal if we can't retire him. Um, I had something else I wanted to touch on and I totally spaced out on it. Um, Oh, one of your things also, I had touched on setting up smaller goals to reach your bigger goal and not rewarding yourself. The reward is the comfort and stability that you are providing yourself and your family. Because, like we said, I just got back from a Disney trip. Well, we borrowed my mom's car to go down there and we had a rough start. We got a flat tire, and not 10 minutes later, a rock hit the windshield and cracked it. But you know what? We didn't let it ruin our trip because I've been successful enough this year that it's no big deal for us to replace that tire and windshield and just keep on moving. And that feeling was so good when my husband looked at me and said, "Hey, thanks for working so hard so that things like this don't feel like the end of the world." And it just hit me hard in my heart because he's right. Before I started doing this business, if anything came up that was a bump in the road, a bill from the doctor, a fundraiser at school that we don't want to not do and have the only kid not doing it, all of those things hurt us so hard before, to where, okay, well, we're pulling from the negative overdraft protection to do this and we know it's wrong, but we're going to do it anyways because we don't have a choice, or we're going to slap this on the credit card because we don't have a choice. Not having to live in that constantly fixing it and constantly being under, not having to live that way is the reward. That is the present you give yourself every time you close and you put that money in your savings account. So just, again, just stay focused on what you want and you will get to it.
So good, Stephanie. That's so good. Yeah, when you told me about that, I was like, man, but you said it. You're like, it didn't feel like the end of the world. We have the means and the ability, and it didn't rob your joy and the memories that you made with your family. One last thing I want to touch on. So I took a course back in 2016. It was called Bold. It's hosted by Keller Williams. And one of the things that they taught us there, specifically about why and your goals. And, these do, the why and your goals, they do intermingle, which is why we started with those two. But one of the things that the instructor said was that there's a percentage, and, most of the percentages are made up, right? But let's just go with 80-20. So 80% of the people are not driven by achieving the success of their goal or their why. Okay, so that means, well, I'm going to feel great at 235 pounds. That's not enough to motivate me. That's not enough to encourage me. Now, 20% of the population, great. If you're one of those, pat yourself on the back. But the vast majority, the 80%, the Pareto principle states that if you replace the achievement or the success, when you achieve that why, when you retire, Caleb, or when whatever your why is, if you will put that in a place of fear. Now, I'm not talking about unhealthy fear. I'm not talking about anything like that. What I'm diving into is that you let I don't ever want to go back on WIC. I don't want to go back on WIC. I will do whatever I need to do so I don't ever have to go back to that position. And that is what motivates me. I don't ever want my children to go hungry. I don't want my wife to not be able to purchase good, healthy food for us to eat. That is the definition. So let just like Stephanie, like motivate, let it push you, and it may be a step. It may be a step by step. Stephanie has come into it, and she's to the point where she's sprinting, she's running. You may be where you're at and you just need to take a step. All right, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up on myself. I'm going to do the hard things, because I know if I do the hard things, eventually, if I do enough of them, I'm going to be compensated and I'm going to be rewarded, and I'm going to feel like I've never felt before. Stephanie was able to go to Disney and have however much money. I know my windshield in my car was, almost $3,000. It's a new car. There's all kinds of sensors. And then a tire can't be cheap, especially if it's a new car and it's on 18s or 20s. But it did not affect her. Not because that she, has millions of dollars, but it's because she has pushed through and said, I don't ever want to go back to that place where Caleb and I we're struggling. We were not okay. Really, that's what motivates Stephanie. It's retiring Caleb, but it's the idea of we're not okay, and that's not okay. And so that is going to motivate me. That is going to drive me. That why, that's the GPS location that I'm going to. I'm not taking a detour. Well, there may be a detour, but I'm not stopping before I get and achieve that result. So Stephanie, thank you for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable. And guys, if you want to set up a time, you sit down with Stephanie, sit down with myself. We would love to help you navigate to your why, or maybe it is just to discover your why. I know Brian would love to sit down. We have people here that are willing to help you navigate this. You're not doing it alone. You're not Lewis and Clark. I haven't made it all the way across the United States yet, but I've seen some things, and you probably have seen things that you can help me and help others. So thank you for being here, Stephanie. And we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Back to basics, week 2, find your why. Be sure to tune in next Monday at 9 a.m. for week 3. We'll see you soon. Have a great week.